All right, guys, it's just another crazy day in Jazz land. I was thinking about doing this live, but I've had to do so many things on SLC Dunk. We're just doing a recording now, but let's start it. Quin Snyder is not coach of the Utah Jazz. Let's talk about it. It's the Hoops Nerd Show. All right, guys, this is pretty huge news, but if you followed this channel, if you read SLC Dunk, if you just actually, believe reporters like Mark Stein and all of those other guys that are plugged in and putting rumors out there, this wasn't all that surprising, and it's been going on for a while, some of this stuff. Mark Stein has been reporting on Quin Snyder rumors since like March. And if you remember, one of the craziest things about this whole thing was the Terry Stotts stuff in March when Terry Stotts was with the team. Now, that may have been just some sort of consulting thing going on to just see what he could do to help out the Jazz and whatnot. But the fact that Quin Snyder is gone now, and we're seeing reports of Terry Stotts possibly being a replacement, is pretty wild. It's pretty wild what's going on. All right. I'm just going off the cuff now. I've been writing for SLC Dunk, like I said. I've got one more article I've got to write tonight because the coaching search has already started. And some other weird things are going on as well. For example, I'm doing this video tonight after not the firing, but Quin Snyder's being let go. The firing. Tomorrow, the Jazz are having a press conference with Danny Ainge, Quin Snyder, and Ryan Smith. It is kind of bizarre. That is like must-watch TV. The NBA continues to be incredible. It is the best reality show on TV and always has been before reality TV was created. All right, first thoughts. This had to happen. And Quin Snyder put out a statement. One of the interesting things that he said in his statement was that for this Jazz team to continue to evolve, he couldn't be a part of it. And I have to agree. I think that this team got to another level with Quin Snyder that it hadn't been before since Jerry Sloan. It didn't get to the levels of what Jerry Sloan got them to, but I also don't know if they had the talent that Jerry Sloan had. Quin Snyder comes to the Jazz in about 2016-17. Oh, no, it was actually earlier than that. In the 2014-15 range. I can't remember. It was 8 years ago. His first two seasons, they don't make the playoffs, but in season 3, they do. And if you'll remember, that was the Gordon Hayward year. Rudy Gobert was finally getting solid minutes. By the way, it's interesting that when Rudy Gobert starts for this Jazz team, they immediately make the playoffs. So some of this like incredible, we talk about incredible coaching and all these incredible coaches. Sometimes you get a player on there that changes your team. Rudy Gobert gets starting minutes and this Jazz team takes off and makes the playoffs. Is it that surprising? No, because we know how good Rudy Gobert is. Anyways, that first year when Rudy Gobert gets like starter minutes for the full season, if you'll remember the season before, they traded Enes Kanter. Rudy Gobert comes in. They almost made the playoffs after Rudy Gobert gets a starting spot after Enes Kanter gets traded. They missed the playoffs by this much. And if you'll remember, that was the season the Jazz were this close. They had to beat a Clippers team that rested their entire starting unit to win the game. They could not do it. And then it was 2 games later when the Jazz just got eliminated after losing to a second-string Clippers team. Kobe Bryant drops 60 and retires. Maybe we should have thought that if you had to win that game, Quin Snyder could have won that game against the Clippers that year. Maybe that was a red flag, or maybe it was bad luck. I don't know. Or maybe it was foretelling of things to come. But the next season, they make the playoffs. If you'll remember, that was the Joe Johnson year that they bring in Joe Johnson. He hits the game winner in that playoff series against the Clippers, where Rudy Gobert goes down in like the first play of the game with a hurt knee. And Derek Favors was fantastic in that series. Gordon Hayward was really good. And Joe Johnson hit a game winner, and they ended the Clippers dynasty. Big time stuff. The next year, after Gordon Hayward ruined everyone's barbecue in Utah on the 4th of July, Quin Snyder coaches Donovan Mitchell in a magical rookie season where he should have won Rookie of the Year, if we're being honest. And they go to the playoffs and they beat a Thunder team. And it was one of everyone's favorite memories. If you'll remember, that year they started off terribly. And then sometime around mid-season All-Star break, Ricky Rubio out of nowhere hits like 55% from three to end the year. And it's really the major thing that drove this Jazz team to winning. Honestly, Ricky Rubio's play halfway through that year sent them over the top. Now, we could argue that at that point they should have tanked, and it would have been better for the team over time if they had just tanked. But they didn't. They make the playoffs. They win. It was phenomenal. Those two playoff runs are the best memories of the Utah Jazz with Quin Snyder. Everyone was in love at that point. It was fantastic. But guess what? There's some things when you look back that maybe it wasn't quite as good as you thought. For one, that Thunder series probably is different if Russell Westbrook doesn't lose his mind because of Ricky Rubio having a career year and playoffs. Ricky Rubio was unbelievable in that playoff. Remember, he had the triple-double. Russell Westbrook comes back and tries to prove a point and dominate Ricky Rubio, and he ruins the chances for the Thunder. Honestly, that was an upset for the Jazz, and they overcame it. But was it coaching, or was it Russell Westbrook going crazy and costing the Thunder their win? Plus, at that point, Carmelo Anthony really wasn't that great, and so the coaching adjustment was really just go at Carmelo Anthony. And the Jazz did it, to their credit. And to Quin Snyder's credit, they did a good job of hunting Carmelo Anthony, and they win that series. And Donovan Mitchell was phenomenal. Donovan Mitchell proved himself to be one of the top young players in the league. Now, what happens? 2 years in a row after that, they miss the playoffs. Or no, they don't miss the playoffs. They lose in the first round of the playoffs. At that point, they didn't miss the playoffs for the rest of Quin Snyder's tenure. So they get knocked out of the first round of the playoffs the next 2 seasons. The year after, they have Mike Conley, it was the year the Jazz had the best record in the NBA. They go into the bubble and they lose in the, I'm getting a little back and forth, and I'm not going to edit this out. I'm just going to put this out because we need to get this out. That year they go to the bubble playoffs. They didn't have the best record. That was the following year. They give up a 3-1 lead to the Denver Nuggets. They had a 3-1 lead, guys, in the bubble. Donovan Mitchell is putting up insane numbers. If you'll remember in that series, Mike Conley misses, I can't remember, I believe it was the first or second game, maybe both. I can't remember, with the birth of his child. Donovan Mitchell has the 8-second backcourt violation that really cost them the game, although they wouldn't be in the game if Donovan Mitchell doesn't play anyway. But that 8-second violation was a heartbreaker. And the game 7, it comes down to the Mike Conley shot. We all remember it doesn't fall. The Jazz give up a 3-1 lead to the Denver Nuggets in the playoffs. Massive heartbreak, and really one of the only shots the Jazz had at a title, because with that team, they could have gone all the way. Now, they didn't have Bojan Bogdanovic, but if you have Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell, and Rudy Gobert all playing at an all-star level, you probably should win that game if you're a contender. Anyways, that's the first of the playoff sagas where we look at Quin Snyder and he has equal talent to the other team. I mean, the other team was, Nikola Jokic and Murray and Michael Porter. And really, you have equivalent talent, and they were not able to overcome it. Malone outcoaches Quin Snyder, and they get the win. If they have Bojan Bogdanovic, do the Jazz win? Possibly, but it wasn't helping their defense, and nothing that Quin Snyder was doing defensively was stopping anything that Denver did. You'll remember that series was insane with what was going on. The next season, the Jazz have the best record in the NBA, like I talked about. Number 1 record. Number 1 in the Western Conference. People are looking at the Jazz as, are they contenders? Is this like the Spurs where they have this collection of talent that, they don't have like a top 5 guy or top 10 guy, but this collection of talent, 2 top 15 guys in Mitchell and Gobert. Mike Conley's an all-star. This collection of talent, maybe this is the group that can get you the win. Well, they win the first round against the Memphis Grizzlies. You'll remember they lose that first game because the Donovan Mitchell had the ankle thing, gets pulled at the last minute by one of the Jazz's health staff, who, by the way, was fired in the offseason afterwards. They win the next 4 games against the Grizzlies, but Mike Conley, who plays good defense against Ja Morant, gets hurt as well. So the Jazz go into that second round against the Los Angeles Clippers. Donovan Mitchell is injured at that point with a rough ankle injury, and Mike Conley is also hurt and doesn't play for a lot of that Clippers series. But what happens is Kawhi Leonard tears his ACL in like the first or second game. So really you are, minus Mike Conley for the Jazz, but they're minus Kawhi Leonard. They have a 2-0 lead on the Clippers and then lose the next 4 games, and in just pretty spectacularly bad fashion. Ty Lue outcoaches Quin Snyder in that series, no questions asked. Donovan Mitchell, despite having the bad ankle, has just a great series shooting the ball. Absolutely phenomenal. Hitting threes, just absolutely great. But no one else on this team, and it's partly Dennis Lindsey's fault for this. They don't have any athleticism on the team. And we'll get to that a little bit, the Dennis Lindsey, Quin Snyder, if I can remember to talk about it. But they give up a 2-0 lead, and then finally, last season, what happens? The Jazz have a series against the Dallas Mavericks. The season is mostly underwhelming. And they have a 1-0 lead against the Dallas Mavericks, who don't have Luka Doncic for the first 3 games, get absolutely demolished by Jalen Brunson in some of those games, and they end up losing the series with a 1-0 lead. I mean, they go from giving a 3-1 lead, a 2-0 lead, a 1-0 lead, Quin Snyder fired. It seems pretty makes a little bit of sense. Now, was it fair? Yes. This is how NBA franchises work. When you feel like you have equivalent talent to someone else, and you get handily outcoached, and you don't have ways to score against the other team, that's when it's time to make a change. This had to happen. And, no one here is saying that Quin Snyder isn't a good coach, because he is a good coach. He's a really good coach. Is he a great coach? I don't know. Is he a great leader? I don't know. That's the other thing. Here are the reasons he's let go. He got outcoached in the playoffs the last 3 years. He just did. Were there injuries? Yes, but you could argue the other teams had them as well. The drama in the locker room and all the turmoil, people want to blame that on Joe Ingles, I guess. If you're a Quin Snyder fan, you're probably the type that likes to blame the fact that the Jazz traded Joe Ingles and he was gone. Or that they traded George Niang and his help in the locker room was gone and they missed that. Maybe. But doesn't the coach have some sort of responsibility for that? The last 2 off seasons, the Jazz have seen multiple assistant coaches leave. Johnny Bryant goes to the Knicks. One of the best development guys. By the way, when he left, the development seems to just drop off a cliff. Zach Guthrie goes to the Mavericks. Igor Kokoskov leaves. You have Sagana Diop just left. Walt Perrin left for the Knicks, and he was over personnel. You have all these guys jumping ship. And we know that the culture was bad and that Quin Snyder was a part of that bad culture because of the article from the Salt Lake Tribune 2 years ago. Go look it up. Go to Google and search Salt Lake Tribune, Quin Snyder, Dennis Lindsey. It'll be the top thing that comes up. Read that article. It will open your eyes. It was bad. It was really bad. So what happens last offseason? They let Dennis Lindsey go. I know they say in the news, like, he was demoted. They were reassigning him or whatever. No, he was demoted, fired, but he had 1 year left on his contract. So that's what we say. No one's talking about Dennis Lindsey anymore. He's gone. This last season was Quin Snyder's chance to prove it. Because of the turmoil between him and Dennis Lindsey, this was his shot to prove that he could do it. That it wasn't just Dennis Lindsey's fault, which, arguably it was. It was Dennis Lindsey's fault in some ways. They should have drafted Desmond Bane or Jaden McDaniels. Either one Jazz fans would have been happy with. They draft Udoka Azubuike. Two of the last 3 seasons, they've traded first round picks for stupidity. They traded a first round pick to get off a bad Derek Favors contract. That's where one of the first round picks went. Ridiculous. So that's why Dennis Lindsey was let go. But last season, Quin Snyder was given the chance to prove that he was not part of the problem. Same team. They bring in Rudy Gay. They have all these players that were from last year to prove that it was not his fault. If this team was healthy, if this team had most of the same parts, could you prove it? Was it just an injury thing against the Clippers? Well, we found out it wasn't an injury thing. It was that they couldn't keep the locker room together and they couldn't outcoach the Dallas Mavericks minus their best player and most important player who didn't even play. It's unbelievable. So guess what? He's gone. And if we should feel bad because I think that Quin Snyder is a nice guy. Does anyone think no, he's a good guy. And he seems like a legitimately nice guy. And I don't wish him ill as a person at all. But if you're a professional sports franchise, you have to have some sort of consequence for not living up to your goals and potential. And this team had a shot at a title, and both times it didn't make it. So I don't care what happens. If you put on LeBron James and Kevin Durant and all these guys on this team, then any coach is taking them to the finals. But when you have a team with 3 all-stars on it, you should be able to prove that you can outcoach another coach with equivalent talent. And Quin Snyder was never able to do it. And I already mentioned it before, but at some point you have to give the coach has to take responsibility for bad culture. If Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert are having problems for 3-4 years, you've got to figure that out. That is part of your job as a coach. And if you can't do it, that's part of it. I'm sorry. Stop putting the responsibility of the head coach on the players. It is not Joe Ingles' job description to be the locker room police. You know, the coach has to do it. And you know what's part of locker room culture? Sitting guys when they don't play well. If Jordan Clarkson's not shooting the ball well or playing well or goes 3 for 13 for like 5 games, maybe you shouldn't play him anymore. Maybe he should sit. If Royce O'Neal can't guard a lamp post, then maybe you should make adjustments to the starting lineup. But when the same 5 guys are playing for 3 years, despite every sort of poor play, then it's time to make a change. We talk about adjustments in the playoffs. What about adjustments during the season? Right? The same 5 guys play no matter what, including the bench. Including the bench. And they don't change for 3 years? Are you serious? And we're surprised that the Jazz have bad culture? If certain guys know that no matter how poor they play, they aren't going to be punished or sit on the bench, then of course everyone else is going to be pissed. And if one guy doesn't play defense and the other one does, and nothing ever happens, if Donovan doesn't play good defense and never sits, and the other one's pissed, of course the guy playing defense is pissed. And the other thing, and it goes the other way. If Rudy Gobert is constantly whining for offensive touches, but when he takes a shot, it sounds like a giant fart noise, and it doesn't even hit the rim, of course Donovan's going to be pissed. All right? So things should be adjusted so that certain people are happy. But if nothing ever changes, if no matter how hard you play, and you're Miaoni, or one of these guys, or Jared Butler, or someone who's playing your heart out, and you never get to see the floor, if your name is Eric Paschall, and you're so obviously better than Rudy Gay, and you never see the floor, of course the locker room culture is going to be pissed. I think I just matrixed myself. So it's time to change, all right? Enough. I've seen enough, and I got tired of it. And if you do the same systems and offense for 3 years in a row, nothing ever changes. Surprise, surprise, every other coach in the league's able to figure it out. Now, is it Quin Snyder's fault that Rudy Gobert hasn't learned some sort of offensive move? Probably, actually. In 7-8 years of Rudy Gobert, he can't do a hook shot or a push shot or anything. I don't want to hear anything about adjustments because he never learned, and we give Quin Snyder, the Jazzerati, and Jazz media, and everyone who covers the team add every sort of excuse for these guys. Every single one of them. Every night, including Quinn himself. All sorts of excuses about why this, why that. They can't do this. They can't do that. You're the coach. You're the coach. You figure it out. Stop blaming the players. And if they don't play well, then bench them. Or trade them. This is a professional franchise. It's time to grow up. It's time to take your pull-ups off and put on your big boy pants and underwear and act like a grown-up for once. And this is the other message I want to say. And this is to all Jazz fans. Grow up. Grow up. It's time to expect more from this Jazz team than we have before. Okay? Nothing is wrong with this franchise. This is a great franchise. They've made the playoffs the last 6 years. Stop acting like we're lucky to have Quin Snyder. Stop acting like this is the best we'll ever do. What are we, in an abusive relationship where our team, where we don't feel like we could ever do better? I got to stay with this guy because I can't do better. No! No! Expect more from yourself. Expect more from your team. Expect more accountability from your franchise. This is a professional team. It's not your kids' AAU circuit. This ain't junior jazz. This is the Utah Jazz of the National Basketball Association. You can make trades. You can bench guys. You can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. You're a team. Act like it. You're a fan base. Expect more. Stop letting the Jazz tell you what to think. If they don't play well, expect better. Expect more. Woo! It's time for the Jazz to change. It's time for the Jazz to grow up for once. And it's nice to see they're finally doing it. And I don't wish ill on anybody. But this team has not had accountability for 5-6 years. For 5-6 years, certain players get accountability and certain don't. And we're surprised that the culture isn't good. Surprise, surprise, you work your tail off, it doesn't matter. Surprise, surprise, for those that didn't care or didn't try on defense, it didn't matter. And so big surprise that you don't have a good defense. So it's a big surprise that in the playoffs when things get tough, the guys that never had to overcome anything weren't tough enough in the playoffs. Big surprise. Big surprise. And anyone who was ever tough enough is gone. Jay Crowder, gone. Booker, gone. We did. Guys, it's long time coming. This was supposed to happen a long time ago. Like and subscribe to the channel. It's finally happening. Things are going to get better, and you can bet. You can bet we're going to talk about it on this channel. Talk to you next time.